Hi guys, welcome to Tactics Zone with the Real Football Talk. With me and Adi will be discussing the Chelsea versus Manchester City FA Cup game, where Thomas Tuchel made a record, Adi, of being the first German manager to go to the FA Cup final. Also beating Guardiola for the first time.
Wow. Yeah, I think that record of losing to Pep is quite unfair anyway,
Really?
considering
Dortmund were quite
considering
good, you know?
nah, no, not against that Bayern team. They took all of Dortmund's best players at the time, Lewandowski, Hummels, Götze. So I think yeah, I saw quite a few of those matches. They were finals and league games. They were quite close, but obviously
The extra quality.
the extra quality of Bayern always won. So yeah,
But I mean,
definitely deserved win.
fantastic win for Chelsea, hindsight, because I mean, this against the Man City time was going for the quadruple, or not anymore.
Yeah, I mean it was a well deserved win. I mean I thought they dominated the whole game until they went ahead. They kind of went into counter attack mode, and that allowed City to start building up a bit more steam and pressure. But yeah, really, they dominated the game until Foden came on.
I mean, the warning,
Says a lot.
the warning sign was there for Man City in terms of what Chelsea were trying to do from the beginning, from the offside goal that Ziyech scored. I mean,
Yeah, and the other chances they created in the first half.
exactly. I mean, they always had. They seem to have the overload on the left hand side all the time. Whenever Chilwell had a great chance that he should have finished. I don't know why. Why on earth he didn't take a touch? Uh,
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. Chelsea were really clever in how they created that overload on the left hand side, and they kept sucking in Cancelo in a really clever way. Chilwell was very good at doing it. They were doing it actually on both sides. So really intelligent tactics from Tuchel in creating the space. But on the left hand side, they always get the overload because Mount prefers playing on that side. Werner likes making runs on that side. So what happens is it's more natural for them to capitalize on the space when they create on the left hand side. On the right hand side, when they create, it ends up being more a 1-2 and getting James up on I think about yeah. What we can do is we can hopefully
let's go into this
go into it
tactics, what they
and
done, and how Chelsea set up. Really,
yeah. So the game was set up. So surprisingly, City went back to the 4-2-3-1. I say surprisingly because most of their best games and performances have been on 4-3-3 with the false nine this season. Most of the big games they've kind of done that. But since De Bruyne has come back, they've been more flexible and switching between the 4-2-3-1
but
and
do you
the
think
four
that's what
two
cost
three.
them in the end because of the
Today against this Chelsea tactic, it did only because of the way they played it. It's not. I mean, I think I could understand why they did that, and I would do the same because of the the concern is about these two tens that Chelsea deploy. And what happens is if you play any other system, for example, I don't know, 4-3-3, if we just sorry, if you pretend it's a 4-3-3, then what'll happen is you're always worried that your two centre backs might get outnumbered by the three um, attacking Chelsea players. So in that sense, I definitely understood it and thought, yeah, it made sense to do that. But it's the way they deployed it, but that made it not so successful.
But what did Chelsea do to kind of create all these overloads? Because you talked about it.
Yeah. So so the main thing was the first point to say is every team that's done well against City this year, they're teams that haven't been afraid to attack and leave numbers up front. So you look at when United played, they did the exact same. They kept three players narrow. not out wide, narrow. So Rashford came. So by doing this, you end up splitting the protection of the team and forcing players out, because in City's identity, they want to, especially when they play 4-3. This is the system. They leave two centre backs spread wide to cover every possible eventuality, and Rodri. Now, when you're leaving three, you're now affecting the fullbacks, their ability to gamble and join in the attack and create overloads in midfield or out into the channels. So yeah, it seems like teams are starting to figure that out. Leeds done the same thing.
Is that what it led to the first goal, though? In terms of, you were saying about the Cancelo pushing up.
No. So how Chelsea did it was a bit more. It was slightly different from the way Leeds and Manchester United. The way Leeds and Manchester United did it was they got the ball into the front three early, and then forced Chelsea, Man City to defend and track back. What Chelsea actually did was they done it the City way, which is actually dominate possession and really just it was really classy play, and everyone was talking about Ziyech and other players. I'm saying the best player on the pitch was Jorginho. That was a masterclass performance, especially in the first half. His performance, if anyone watches that back and just watches the amount of times and different ways in which he beats the press of De Bruyne, and sometimes even two players, it was a masterclass. It was if that was Iniesta or Xavi, everyone would be talking about what a world-class performance that was. I mean, in that first half, I cannot praise how highly Jorginho played. It was excellent. I mean, he dictated the whole game. They couldn't win the ball off him, and sometimes they put two man on him. De Bruyne was going for him specifically, and they just couldn't lay a glove on him. He was that good, 2 steps ahead, and that's no small achievement doing that to De Bruyne, who is super intelligent in his pressing. But Jorginho had the better of him the whole first half. It was a joy to watch. So what really, how they did it was really clever, because what they did was they were willing to pass the ball into midfield, and what they kept doing was, so City got this thing where they're using Sterling and Torres to actually pick up the centre backs, because they were playing it across the back line and they're quite spread out. So then Torres and Sterling were the ones picking them up. So then now, just like we said against Leeds, this causes a problem for Mendy, because he doesn't really feel comfortable to go that far up, but he did it better. And Cancelo. So what they did was, what Chelsea done really well was, as soon as what would happen was Chilwell and James would go up to here and receive the ball, force Mendy and Cancelo out, and then what they'll do, they'll go back, they'll dribble back to go inside again, or back to Rudiger. And what that did was, the moment they've committed, they're following Chilwell all the way in, and Chilwell was just dribbling it back, forcing him and kind of showing enough of the ball that Cancelo's biting. And what that does is he either goes inside or to Rudiger. For the goal, he went inside to Jorginho.
To Mount.
Straight away, Mount is going out wide. He's exposing the space there. Werner is looking to go down the byline too. Like I said, both of them prefer operating down the left channel. And what was really good about Ziyech was the whole game, even though he was played as a 10, he actually played more like a central striker, in the sense that Werner was moving everywhere, Mount was moving everywhere. Ziyech was the only player who stayed central. He wasn't making movements down the channels. So he was always keeping Mendy or Laporte honest, because he still had the threat of, and for the goal it worked to perfection, because they create this situation. Diaz is compromised. Who do I go with? That forces Laporte to come across. Ziyech goes in, and Mendy's already been sucked into this. So by the time he's getting back, and he didn't use full pace. I mean, Mendy's very fast, and next thing you know, it's a simple goal. Obviously, Ederson decision making is questionable, because he kind of made
it was Stefan. It was Stefan in goal.
Sorry, Stefan. Yeah. So yeah, Stefan was in goal. So that was questionable, because he kind of made the decision for Warner to cross it instead of buying time. So
one thing on the thing that you're showing, really.
Yeah.
What were Rodri and Fernandinho doing? Surely them seeing that Mount has so much space, and you were saying Mount is playing like a 10. Surely they have to go with the runner, because that's one of their men.
No, so that was the thing, because City were getting it into, so I mean Chelsea were playing it into the actual midfield, into Kante and into Jorginho in tight spaces. So they didn't want Rodri and Fernandinho to go tight like they normally do. Normally, Rodri will go all the way up. He'll trust Diaz to and Laporte or Stones. He'll trust his defenders to get the better of the strikers if a team goes direct. But the thing is, Chelsea didn't even bother going direct. What they could do, they were actually playing it in tight spaces around the press. And that's why I would say they did what City do to teams, which they stayed true to the philosophy and brave. They weren't afraid of City's pressing. And everyone knows, I mean, City is excellent at pressing. But the performance of Jorginho was so good. I mean, he had De Bruyne, all over the place. He was pulling De Bruyne everywhere. But De Bruyne just could not read what Jorginho was doing.
But on that, really, do you think this is a classic case of Pep kind of outdoing himself in terms of he's done this against, I think, Lyon last year, where he kind of decided to change his formation and system and the way he plays, and now it seems like he's done the same thing here again, where he's overthinking it too much.
I think that might be a bit harsh, because they do play the 4-2-3-1 a lot for many games. So I wouldn't say he.
I meant more so the fact that the players weren't pressing. You were saying Rodri and Fernandinho, or one of them would use.
No, they were pressing, but what it was, they didn't want to. So in the first half, so that was the difference. In the first half, they weren't pressing. They kept staying deep. And if you look at it, Rodri was in and around, but by then, for the disallowed goal, for the chance that happened straight after the disallowed goal, as well, the same move across from the left. The first one was Mount's, and then the second was Werner's cross in. For both, Rodri and Fernandinho was there, but they just got beaten to it, because they obviously having to cover the space. So yeah, in the first half, but that's why in the first half Chelsea totally dominated the possession stats and dominated the whole half, was because they were both sitting. In the second half, they realized that was the flaw. They started going tight. They started to take more risks. At least one of them was going, and Fernandinho was kind of sitting a bit more. So they were more committed towards actually winning the ball high up. But again, it cost them still, because of the fact that Chelsea were just, forcing Cancelo out, and it's the bravery of the fact that they were happy to play around the press. They weren't afraid of City pressing.
But do you think another major factor to the win also maybe De Bruyne going off injured?
No, because he was getting completely marked out of the game. So off the ball. So the problem City had on the ball was this thing of Sterling and Torres coming in narrow. And this was the biggest thing. The biggest difference between the two teams was Chelsea was happy for their defenders to mark City's attackers one for one, man for man, and in general they were more athletic and stronger than the attackers. So I think only once in the first half, I think Jesus roasted Azpilicueta, but other than that, man for man, the Chelsea defenders were better. So they were happy to play with this. The City wasn't. City always wanted a spare man. So this is the difference in the philosophy. So Chelsea got rewarded for playing with risk. And what happened was every time they were attacking, wherever, so Kante was going for the press, James was going for the press, but the difference was they were pressing high up in the City half. They weren't waiting for the ball to be played into midfield.
But I mean, that means it's harder for them to even play the long ball, even though the defenders are isolated, because they're pressing so high up and so next to them. It's hard for them to play that pass in, anyways, or an accurate pass in.
Yeah. So and they weren't. And this is the thing, because City don't mix it up, and they won't go direct, and they're gonna still try and play around you.
But
they kept winning the ball back. I mean, the amount of times they won it in this area, and a lot of the times it's Chilwell, Mount, and Werner. So even at one point, and I was really surprised at how aggressive they did it. What they had was Torres come in. So Torres started. So basically, what they did was halfway through the first half, they started making Sterling and Torres pick up James and Chilwell because they were struggling to dominate the game. Then they realized actually that's not the problem. The problem is our central midfielders aren't pressing high enough. So then they changed it in the second half. But at one point, what they did was they had 5 guys and even Rudiger all the way against 4, and they won't nick the ball back. That's how aggressive. And the good thing was the leadership of Ziyech. Ziyech was dictating a lot of the press. So he was shouting at Werner, Mount, where to be, when to press. He was dictating a lot of it, which shows, his value he's bringing to the team. Because every single time they kept nicking the ball. And that's how aggressive it was. I mean, who leaves one-on-one like this and with Sterling and Jesus? But even Rudiger was stepping in. Even a lot of times, Azpilicueta was stepping in. That's how aggressively they played the press.
But on that, what I was gonna say is, even though they're doing that, I mean, City did a few times try the crossfield ball to Sterling, but Sterling kept losing it, and this seems to be the problem with him for the last I don't know how many weeks. He's just been so poor, where he seems to not be able to beat any players, not get hold of the ball or keep the ball, and giving away very cheaply.
Let's be honest, he's been poor all season.
Off it. He just completely seems off it.
No, I think he's been poor all season. I don't remember. I mean, he went to Spurs scoring a few goals, but even the performance still weren't good in and around there. And I think it's right that Pep has kind of dropped him from the starting 11 because Foden is playing that much more better, and he showed that today.
I mean, when he came on, Foden looked amazing. I mean, he
yeah. I mean, that's the only time Chelsea Chelsea had to defend really with any concern. I mean, that's the only time City had any threat was when Foden came, and we'll come to that in a bit, the reasons for that. But what the other point I wanted to make was what they did do is wherever De Bruyne went, Jorginho or Kante followed, and their communication was really good. So even sometimes when Jorginho went, they were always man marking De Bruyne. He's the only player they were man marking. And even sometimes when both of them went, you'd see Rudiger sprint to man mark De Bruyne, Azpilicueta.
He was so aggressive.
And they're going in hard. They're really going in hard on him. And so sometimes they were leaving Sterling. They just did not want to see this thing of De Bruyne having time and space. So the man marked him at the game, the whole game. A lot of the times they had 2 men on him. And he was getting frustrated. He was really he's getting fouled quite a bit, and he's moaning, and he's fouling back in return, but he's complaining the whole way through because they're just man mark. At one point, I can't remember. I think it was Cancelo or Diaz. One of them dribbled through, and Jorginho was there, and De Bruyne just spun off like he does, really in the clever way.
Yeah.
Jorginho didn't give a he didn't care about the man on the ball. He just completely left the whole midfield, let him run all the way there, and just to man mark De Bruyne. That's how much it was a tactic to not leave De Bruyne in any space.
I mean, that he is the key man in this new way of that he's playing, really, Guardiola.
Well, that's the thing. Currently, and especially the last few games, I felt that it seems like this becoming a bit too over reliant on De Bruyne, and then that might be a flaw or potential weakness to the City system, is the lack of individualism. I mean, anyway, Pep's system doesn't allow for much individualism anyway, because, they pass and move. They play to a system where they creating angles and creating space and attacking the space through their passing and movement. It's very strategically positioned players, and that's how they create their goals. But I always felt it's a weakness in the system, because you can train a team to defensively stop that, because it's a system that they're playing. You can see what the patterns that they're trying to create, but you can't stop an individual player, a player who's right, because you don't know what they're going to do, whether they're going outside, inside, step overs, you don't know. So I always find teams, and that's why I felt last year Liverpool were more of a threat, is because they've got the individual element of Salah, Mane doing something that you can't prepare for. Instinct football is very difficult to prepare for, because it's individual. You don't know if the opposition don't know how they're going to attack you. They're going to play on instinct. Then how do you prepare for that?
Are they quick one?
Yeah.
Do you think this game was won tactically more than actually anything?
No. I mean, it was won tactically, but also technically. This is the thing. I mean, let's not get this one. Let's not downplay how well Chelsea played.
Yeah.
They technically also outplayed Man City. I mean, the way they were beating the press, the way they were taking the ball, handling the pressure, beating their man all over the pitch, they were happy to take it. There were times even when James was about to lose it and he just dribbled through. Or Chilwell. The bravery in which they played, the technical ability they played, they outplayed City even technically, not just tactically.
This bodes really well for them, because, I mean, considering FA Cup final, they're in the semi-final of the Champions League.
And according to you, this is the Champions League final.
Yeah,
because you think it's an all-English final.
I mean, that's what I said, didn't I?
Yeah. So according to you, this is a potential rematch of
this. This is going to be a fascinating matchup, because Pep's going to want a comeback against them.
Yeah, I mean, Pep's going to analyze this game and come with something different next time.
You know how crazy he's going to go in his head, because reading some of the things he does, it's insane.
I think that first half will worry him, Pep, a lot, because Chelsea totally dominated that first half and really outplayed City. Were unlucky not to be ahead, and even after they scored, I mean, they went into counter-attack mode where everyone came back, and they just left. They went to 3-5-2. I mean 5-3-2, where Chilwell and James just actually went into flat five, and they brought Emerson on as a midfielder, and they left two players up front. They're playing on the counter-attack. And what City did was they went and brought on Gundogan and Foden, and they kind of went to a 3, but still allowed Cancelo to push up, but a bit more narrow. And yeah,
Adi, don't you think them playing two centre defensive midfielder, they went a bit too defensive in their approach, because to me it seems like they were giving Chelsea a lot of respect, and kind of, because usually it would be one or the other, either be
But,
Rodri or, and then they would have the two in front, either Gundogan
but you have to factor in Chelsea's formation that normally they're not going to come up against. What are they going to come up against? They're going to come up with both teams playing one up top and two players out wide.
No, I'm saying
they're going to come up against what two up top, or 110, one. The fact that Chelsea play with 2 10s and 1 number 9 is a problem for all teams.
No, I don't disagree with you. What I mean is, as in, to influence their game and force Chelsea to kind of change their
but that's the difference. But that's the difference in the philosophies. Pep wants to control game. So even though he's committed to the pressing, he's also committed to controlling the game. And how do you control a game? Always have one spare player as well at the back. And so that's that. So in his desire to control Chelsea's attacking opportunities, he went with 2 defensive midfielders. I personally different philosophies ultimately.
I personally don't agree with that approach he made to the game. I think maybe he should have gone a bit more positive outlook, like he's been doing, and then that might have changed Chelsea's game plan and the way they played.
I'm not sure how much it would have, because Chelsea was still going to play out with risk. And what was the second half? They did that. I mean, second half they didn't sit. Second half they did play with the one, and they were still getting outplayed. So I just think the system, they the way they were sucking in the fullbacks and creating the overload out wide and forcing Diaz out was the game changer. And they did it enough time for you to realize it was a set move, because they done it for the 2 chances in the first half. They done it for the first goal with the winner. So it was definitely a set move of how, they'll play the Chilwell would make the run, receive it in the half, and then dribble it backwards and force Cancelo to chase. That was definitely a clever ploy to create the gap.
Is this also worrying for Man City, in the sense that maybe PSG will look at this and kind of,
No, I mean, it's not really the fact that, is it a worry? The worry, I would say, is actually the fact that PSG will play similar to Chelsea, in the sense that they're happy to defend and let the players play with individualism. And that's where the biggest difference is Chelsea in Mount Werner had players who are running, creating opportunities, because they're not stuck to a system as such in the final third. But with City, they are stuck to it. So then they'll come up with a similar problem. Maybe PSG might not be as risky in playing out from the back. They might not be as brave, but yeah, Chelsea was so well drilled in beating the press today. It was really impressive. I mean, even Kante, the amount of times he dribbled through under pressure.
He seems like he's got his fire back. He seems like the old Kante again. We talked about it in the Champions League game.
He doesn't always look comfortable. Like, he looks like he's going to lose it quite a few times. But they still carried on giving it to him. They still carried on playing brave. And sometimes he did give it away. Sometimes he just dribbled out of trouble. Sometimes he found a man. But they continued. They never got afraid every time City won it high up the pitch. They continued playing their game.
I mean, Adil, last point, let's talk about how did Foden change the game, even though they didn't, end up winning. But Foden made a huge change. I remember, I think on the 87th or something minute, where Kante was chasing him, and I think the right back James was chasing him, and he was taking both of them on, and he kept going and gave
and getting hacked.
Yeah, that is phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, he's for a slight guy. He's got real power. He's like a Kante. He's got deceptive power. But
Yeah.
you see him in the physical chat when he budges a play, he's a lot more. He might be lean, but he's quite strong. He knows how to use his body, but his dribbling speed is really good. He's got power in those legs, the way he dribbles. But the main thing was he brought that individualism that City never had, and because Chelsea was so well drilled the whole time, because they were man marking the only other individual player or only other player who's going to do something different or on instinct, which is De Bruyne. What happened was they didn't give Foden the same thing because Foden actually came in. They moved Sterling to the right, and Foden went to the left.
Sterling just needs to drop.
Took Torres's place. Yeah, I mean that's another question. I mean Sterling's performance is.
Sorry, Mahrez needs to play, and Sterling needs to be dropped.
And that's the thing. They left. You know, FA Cup you can do 5 substitutions. They left Bruno Silva, Bernardo Silva, and Mahrez on the bench the whole time. So I don't know. I don't know what. Maybe saving them for their midweek game against Aston Villa. I don't know why.
Come on, you're in the FA Cup semi-final, potentially winning the FA Cup.
Yeah, that's the thing I could answer because the league is wrapped pretty much. They only need to win 1 or 2 games.
I think he thought they were still going to come back. I think he was very.
Yeah, I mean, there at no point, even when Chelsea sat deep and Foden came and made a difference, they only created 1 chance in that, which was from a corner.
Yeah.
Diaz a real good chance. Diaz knocked. I think Rodri or someone knocked it from the back post, and it came to Diaz, and he headed it over the bar. And the only other threat they had was from a corner, which was they just never had. And the thing with Foden was he was not staying on the left wing. He was moving everywhere. So suddenly they never had they had someone not playing to a system, and that's what was causing Chelsea problems.
I mean, but massive credit to Chelsea, I guess, Adil.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, Tuchel, the progress Chelsea are making under Tuchel is scary because this is in a lockdown season where there's so many games. No, he hasn't had pre-season to embed his ideas and his system, and they are playing it like they've been doing it for years.
They're also playing without a real striking force, really. If you look at Warner, apart from Mount, no one really clicked up there.
Yeah, I mean they're making it work because they're all working hard and they're all playing to a system where their skills are getting used. But yeah, I mean,
it's a scary sight. Imagine they have a top class striker up there.
No, that just imagine how much more smoother things are going to be next season. Yeah. Because soon as they went 1-0 up, they straight away changed their style and played on the counter-attack. These things aren't easy to embed during a season. These type of tactical game plans and then everyone seems to know what to do. Whoever it is, when the subs come on, when they go to a 5-3-2, everyone knows their role is seamless. So for me, that's the scary thing for everyone else is how much they've progressed during the season under Tuchel.
I mean, credit to Tuchel and his team, the backroom staff for the work they're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, fully deserved win. You can't take anything away from Chelsea. I mean, both teams played in Europe. Both teams made changes. I just think
no excuse there for City, to be honest. But thank you, Adil, for that fascinating insight into the tactics of Chelsea and how they nullified Man City to pretty much nothing. And guys, do keep watching. We have more programs coming out throughout the week and weekend. And please like, share, subscribe. Thank you, Adil.